Do you buy? Do you rent? Do you invest? These are all the questions we want to know. This week on Indigo Living's On the Couch series, we can't wait to explore the world of real estate and how to get in it, take advantage, and of course, keep up with this ever fast-paced industry. This week, we speak to Lyndsey Redstone. She is from PH Real Estate. She is an expert on the market, and as a female broker, she has some tips and tricks that she wants to share with you. Please welcome Lyndsey Redstone. Hello.
Hi, Rose. Thanks for having me today.
Thank you for being here. I feel like we're always talking about fashion and creatives and interiors when really you can't have all of that unless you have a home.
Very true. Yeah.
Very true. So we thought we'd hit the basics and talk about real estate because the numbers are, well, they're impressive. They are growing at a rapid speed, and Dubai is the top of the conversation for everyone around the world.
Yeah, so we've come out of the lockdown period in Dubai kicking and screaming and bringing a lot of new investors and people wanting to change up their homes who are already here.
And what have you seen as the pattern? Have you seen a lot of people moving into UAE, or has it been just investments?
So we've found a lot of new families relocating here, as well as a lot of people deciding to upgrade in terms of their size, amenities of their house. I think spending so much more time at home, everyone's decided that it's more important to have a workspace at home or a garden or a larger terrace. So we've seen a lot of people upgrading as well, which is quite surprising given everything that was going on globally over the past 18 months.
And in Dubai, how do you look for the best area to invest? Because it is constantly evolving. There are so many new areas opening up. What should people look for when they're going to make a very big, large investment like buying a home?
So I think it depends quite a lot on individual circumstances, whether people are looking for a family home. If so, you consider which are the closest schools, the transport access for work, things like this. If it's a pure investment, obviously you're looking at the rental yields and what you would be likely to achieve on a ROI type of thing as well.
So the return on the investment for someone who is investing, what is a good number to look for?
So up until recently, we would have been looking in Dubai at around 8% as a return on investment for a net yield. However, of course, the prices for purchasing have gone up in the last 12 months, and the rental prices are usually and typically 6 to 8 months behind. So at the moment, the net yields are slightly lower. We're looking at 4 to 5%, which is still an increase in comparison to other major cities like London, where you'd be looking at 2 to 3%. So at the moment, we're at around 4 to 5%.
So let's explore the idea of an investment, because I think people want to park their money somewhere safe, have something physical to hold on to where they can literally see that they own an apartment or a home.
Yeah.
What are the hidden costs of being a homeowner or an investment?
Okay, so when you purchase the property, you do have costs involved, which is nice to know from the outset when you're doing your finances. So any purchase is subject to a land department transaction fee, which is almost like a stamp duty in the UK, which is 4% of the purchase price. This goes to the government. On top of that, you have an administration charge known as the trustee fee, which is $4,200 on every purchase. In Dubai,
that's good to know. I mean, it's good because I think no one really talks about these hidden fees. So we're already at 2 fees already in.
Yeah, and it's amazing how many buyers who have been looking around haven't been told by a broker what the fees are to expect, because it's important when you're doing your calculations to know that not only do you need your down payment if you're purchasing with a mortgage, but also your fees as well. So in addition to that, you do have an agency fee. In Dubai, the buyer pays for brokerage fee, which is typically 2% plus VAT if you're buying a secondary market property. If you're buying from a developer with your agent helping you, at that point you don't have any transaction fees for purchasing, and a lot of the developers are doing reductions in the land department fee as well.
That's good to know. So you should really ask. Okay, so you should ask.
Yes. And then if you're buying with a mortgage, you'll also have a mortgage registration fee, which is 0.25% of the loan amount.
Wow.
Yeah.
And do you recommend for people to go for the mortgage route?
So the interest rates in Dubai are typically quite low, and the banks are quite flexible in terms of their lending criteria. So I think that if you're able to purchase rather than rent, but you don't have a full amount to purchase in cash, yes, a mortgage can be a very attractive option. I'd say probably around 60% of my buyers are mortgage buyers and 40% are buying outright in cash.
And then once you own this property, right, and whether you want to rent it out or even stay, especially in apartment buildings, which are kind of the easiest where you can lock and go, what are the hidden costs of maintaining an apartment?
So each developer or development has an annual service charge. So for example, on the Palm for a 2-bedroom apartment, you're looking anywhere between 22 and 24,000 dirhams per year.
Wow.
For your service charge.
And that is the responsibility of
the owner or the landlord.
Yeah.
In addition, if some developments have a beach club, you can pay extra for the beach club on top of your service charges. And then villas, they do go down quite substantially. So like Emirates Living, which is a very popular community, the service charges are at between 1.9 and 2.1 dirhams per square foot.
Oh, wow. So I feel like these are all the topics that people need to know because they just want to financially plan their investment and see if it's actually worth investing in a way to rent it or to actually move in.
Yeah, I think all of the costs are something that needs to be considered strongly when you're purchasing. And I think having someone who is patient and can explain what's needed, what your costs are going to be ongoing, so that you're fully aware before you enter into something that you may or may not be able to achieve. So it's an expensive purchase and it's a big decision finding a house. So you need someone who's going to explain everything to you. Like for me, I do a spreadsheet for a client. So they'll have a breakdown exactly of what everything's going to cost so that they know in black and white and make sure it's a feasible option for them.
In a city like Dubai or a place like the UAE where there's developments, building constantly, how do you find a broker? How do you find one that you trust and who's going to give you the best advice?
So unfortunately, Dubai brokers do have a little bit of a bad rap because they work on commission only. They're often very pushy and trying to make people make decisions quickly. Your initial contact with a broker is usually through one of the portals or by recommendation. So Property Finder or Bayou, and you phone or WhatsApp the agent, as it's now the fashion, and you begin your connections. I think just like with anything, you'll work out whether you get along and you feel like that agent is going to work in your best interest quite quickly. But a lot of business is done through referrals now in Dubai.
Yeah, I guess
like
it's word
most
of
of
mouth.
mine now is through referrals, someone who's bought or sold through me before, and they're happy with the service and they're introduced to their friends, and then it moves forwards from that.
And here in a city which is so new and there's so many developments literally popping up all the time, would you recommend buying off plan?
So the difference between buying off plan versus ready is off plan, you're tying up your finances in today's market, which means that you've got installments going all the way to completion. Dubai is a very transient market and it has its ups and downs. So you've got negatives on that front. However, you usually get a slightly lower price if you buy it off plan. The only downside if you're an investor is if you're an investor and wanting to take something off plan, you're not going to have any ROI on your investment up until the point it's ready. So it really depends what you're looking for in terms of your acquisition. I think that a lot of people, especially if you're looking for a home, you want to be able to see, feel, touch, and work out what it is that you actually like. So off-plan doesn't always work. But some of the developers have started doing show homes, which they furnish and stage nicely, ready for people to look around. So at least you have an idea of what you're buying, because sometimes a floor plan doesn't actually give you a clear idea of what it is that you're getting. Yeah.
Dubai is a hot topic everywhere around the globe. It is a place for luxury, families, home, water, sports. You can live by the beach. What are the numbers right now that people are looking at that have invested in the UAE?
So in terms of transactional values, yesterday, for example, there was 1.7 billion dirhams of new home sales registered at the land department.
It's amazing.
And then
compared to last year,
where we'd just come out of our lockdown here, and we had if we look at the exact same day, the 7th of June last year, it was 131 million.
Wow.
So it means we've had 15 times more transactions on the same day of the year if we compare it to last year. And what's really been affected is the luxury end of the market. So the prices at the higher end have gone up between 30 and 40% since last year, in some cases even more. So it's really a boom, and there's not enough properties for people to find at the moment, which is what's forcing the prices to go up even further at the moment, because it's all about supply and demand for ready turnkey properties for people to move in.
That's amazing. So now, Dubai is the hot place. We have young professionals moving in, and a lot of them want just an apartment. They want to rent, they want to test out the market, they're new to the city. What are the do's and don'ts for people that are renting? Because I think that is, people don't know what to ask a landlord, what their rights are.
So important things to consider when you're renting the property is, for me, I'd ask a little bit about the owner of the property, because at the end of the day, you're going to have a relationship with them for the next 12 months onwards. And you want to know whether they're going to be contactable if there's any maintenance issues. Like, I'm super lucky. If anything goes wrong, my owner has a team there to get it sorted straight away. So I'd ask questions about the owner's maintenance issues. In terms of the apartment itself, you look at the facilities of the building. I would look at the extra costs involved. So some buildings have extra costs for air conditioning, like Empower, which you have on the Palm, whereas some of the buildings with an EMAR, it's included within the rent. So you know what the fixed prices are. I'd ask my broker what the expected DEWA bills would be. And then in terms of price, I'd look at what else is on the market to make sure I'm paying the fair price and compared to other properties. How many check payments that the owner would consider. Previously in Dubai it was more 1 or 2. Now the owners seem to be a bit more flexible and consider 3 or 4 payments per year. So you've got that flexibility as well. And then, especially with everything going on, I'd always want to have an option for a notice period within my contract in case anything happened with me work-wise or anything like that. So I wasn't stuck in a position where I wouldn't be able to meet my obligations. So maybe a 2-month notice or 2-month penalty should I need to move out of the property sooner.
And finally, should you buy, should you rent, should you invest? That is the question, because right now it's just this crazy boom. It's so exciting for the city, but if you're living here, is this a good time to buy? I think it's been such a rental culture.
I think it depends on quite a lot of factors. If you've got the affordability in terms of your deposit, and you're planning on being in Dubai for the mid to long term, I would definitely suggest purchasing rather than renting. If you're renting, you're paying off someone else's mortgage at the end of the day, and you won't have any assets. Whereas if you purchase, you're paying off your own mortgage. The costs are actually usually a little bit cheaper than rentals because of the lower interest rates. And it means that you're able to have a tangible asset at the end of the day. And then going back to what I said before about price per square foot, I still think there's a lot of room for growth in the Dubai market. It has come up very quickly, but the prices we were at pre-pandemic were almost lower than it would cost to build a property.
Wow.
So the prices were at such a low stage, even though they've come up, they're nowhere near the peak that we were at before. So I still think there's a bit of room for growth. And then you get to customize your own home, furnish it nicely, do everything that you want to do to a property. Like for me, I'm renting my apartment, but I'm in the process of buying one. And I hate my kitchen. So if I owned it, I'd be wanting to redo the kitchen. And you don't want to do it when you're renting a property.
Thank you so much for joining us.
And thanks for having me.
And thank you for all that great advice. It is so important, I think, as people plan their personal investments and portfolios going forward. So thanks for sharing that.
Thank you very much.
And thank you for joining us this week on Indigo Living's On the Couch series. As you know, we've given up the couch due to COVID, but we do have a fancy coffee table, new chairs, and of course, we have incredible women joining us each week, sharing all their insightful knowledge in their industry. So make sure you join us, follow our podcast, YouTube, Instagram, and we are everywhere. Like, follow, and of course, comment below. We'd love to hear from you. Stay safe and stay healthy, and we'll see you next week. Bye.